Hey, welcome to my video. I'm Jenny, Jen, Jennifer, whichever you prefer. And this is True Divine 4-4. I appreciate you all being here, listening at whatever point you listen at. Good evening, good night, and good morning, depending on where you're at when you hear this. So I haven't been on for a while, but this is another writing on the wall of the energies that I'm finding very prominent. And it goes back to a good few years ago now, when on this platform and in other spaces, I was speaking very much of feeling the energies of this divine feminine force building and bubbling underneath, beyond the veil, but very much building. And it is an ancient story and a repetitive cycle that we have been in amongst that ancient story. So it isn't just overnight. These changes are erupting like volcanoes, building up pressure. And the eruption, I feel, is here for a lot of those energies I was speaking of this divine feminine energy force building. And that wasn't just all love and light, it was love and wrath as well. A disdain in some of those layers of energies for what has been done to the divine feminine energy and the imbalance it has created, not in nature, but has affected nature and made nature work in different ways to create its own balance. And the humans building a matrix on top of a matrix on top of a matrix regarding the balance of divine feminine and divine masculine energies housed in the female and male bodies, in the woman and the man. And so this story of man versus woman has been an ancient one, but in our history, it has been a repetitive one for a long, long time now. And it basically, it predates, I feel, racism, prejudice. It is the birthing canal for all of that, for racism, for prejudice, for misogyny, because that's where it all started, in this versus game. At some point there has been a utilization or a masculine energy that has sought to create a different hierarchy to the matriarchal system that it seemed we were in. And with that, they worked really hard. It gives us an indicator as to what the balance was like previously. Otherwise, why did they have to work so viciously and so hard to create that imbalance between male and female, the housings of prominent divine feminine and divine masculine energy? And so with that, we know about the organized religious cults that saw the power and knowledge housed in the women's bodies that had a divine feminine nature coursing through it. And with that, they didn't like that. That was going to be something that seemingly would block their rise to power and their re-establishing of a very different hierarchy that has kept us out of step with nature ever since. And we've gone out of step so many times now that there is a long way to return to even the balance that they took out, and even longer still to maybe get to even more of a balanced space. And so, but we are doing this. We are finding ourselves in some numbers stepping back and trying to walk through this compass that has kept shifting out now back to a balanced point, a balance and a middle ground between the positive and negative charge, being able to utilize the two in a much better way. And so this is where they took out that wisdom and that knowledge that was very much delivered by many women, it seems, by how hard they worked against the women in different tribes, cultures, and different societies. And so those women were labeled witches and were to be feared. People were fooled into fearing the witches women through the religious propaganda, old stories that had been changed and distorted by kings and priests in order to fit this new, very negatively charged masculine energy and hierarchy. And so that fear would have been more that the fact of what they were actually doing to these women, to these sources of power. So if you can imagine those tribes people, they would have, it's a double whammy, it's a double blow, because they were going for a very powerful force. And so that already puts the mindset of what are we dealing with here that would dare to come for this powerful force within our tribe, within our culture. And so it already puts you on the back foot. And then you see what they would do, what they paid people to go around doing in creating fear by torturing these women. And so again, people forgetting the source of the fear, that the source of the fear is actually coming via the actions of those that seek to destroy. They linked the two. And so the fear of witches, they just implanted that fear on them. So they began to toe the line, to fear the women. Within those tribes, no doubt there would have been factions of men and women that maybe housed a jealousy towards the powerful women of in their space. And so, you know, you would have people like we do today who should stand with their fellow brother, their fellow sister, but instead, because of their own ego and own will and want for power, or for jealousy or for greed, it would have suited them at the time also to go along with that, thinking that there was something better for them to be had under this new patriarchal system that was being built. And so you see that they're not just getting attacked from another side, an outside force. You would have seen, no doubt, insiders, people who you would think would stand with them, because it wasn't affecting them at the time. They were happy to externalize that also. So they were also getting attacked by their own people, no doubt, as time went on. So I've actually gone through this recently, this witch hunt, and the surreal nature of it was so surreal, being in that moment where it finally erupted into a more public eye, and seeing the people that were willing to stand by and encourage and join in, and using the terms like witch, you should burn. You know, she's a witch putting evil spells on people. It was a witch hunt from their very own mouths. And that then went on through this so-called movement, through speakers of this movement. Very misogynistic attack was launched on this witch. And so it was ancient energies coming forward. I could feel it. It was very intense. And this is being played out even more so right now. And so this ancient story of man versus woman is being seen, particularly that I've witnessed in the UK, particularly within this so-called movement of freedom, freedom of speech, freedom to choose, freedom to be sovereign. And the very speakers that have been planted in some parts, or just like those ancient ones who actually it suited them at the time, ego-wise, to join that misogynistic voice. You find that the loudest people, just like the loudest fanatics on the sides of the government and of very obvious agendas, you find this in this so-called freedom movement also. And so the attack on the women is happening from the inside again, more so from directed from up on high, yes, but taken on board by the very people who are standing next to you in the same societies, who say they come in light, who say they come in love and unity, and say they come in freedom. But everything about what they say and do speaks and screams the opposite of such. And so they've seek to silence, they've seek to destroy, they've seek to create fear again, just like that ancient story of, oh, fear the witch. It is a dark one that is on a repeat, a repeat, a repeat. And so you hear people shouting out within this movement, following such energies, to say, how can they not see? And that meaning they, the masked people, or those that have had that infusion people. And you see that they're saying, how can they not see? They're blind, they're blind. And it's like, but you're walking amongst the very same agenda and falling for it because you think it doesn't affect you yet. And man or woman, it doesn't take a genius to see how the ancient story of them taking out the powerful women in those societies and labeling them as witches being repeated again. You've seen in between that how that has built the systems that you say you are fighting now. So it's right in front of your eyes too. But it is only for those who have the eyes to see and ears to hear, of course. And again, that is the not small number by any part, but that not the loudest. And the most loud and fanatic voices are really getting more unstable, and they are feeling more emboldened, just like that ancient story, feeling more emboldened to go out and say and do things that should be completely unacceptable under the essence of what freedom should be, of what sovereignty should be, and respect for those who hold themselves in a sovereign space and in a free space, or want to fight to do so. And so you see that they are getting more and more emboldened, and these triggers that are happening through the propaganda that then is getting shared around in meme after meme after meme. A lot of it is about this God, that it was this God that under the name of this God, these systems have been built that you say you fight. Under the name of this God that came in like then, murders and rapes were happening, child abuse was happening, and it was normalized. And more so, it's the same God that built these systems, the same God that the crown serves, yet the contradictory nature is that they're spieling out, not even, it seems, that God's words, they are taken distorted and edited and recoded, recalibrated story or stories, and throwing them out there. So if you're going against all of the things that under this God was built, then surely to goodness you would see that that is a bit ironic. But again, many people cannot see. And it is a dangerous time where I feel this surge of misogyny coming from the weirdest and most abstract corners that you would not expect, from within people that you would not expect. But because it aligns with certain things like the old biblical memes being put out there so willy-nilly with very little understanding of them, you see that it is happening, and it is going to increase. Attacks on women will be becoming more and more apparent. It's something I've been speaking about for quite some time, especially over the last 2 years. And then we also those see that for those with eyes to see and ears to hear, for those that have been picking up on this divine feminine force bubbling just beyond the veil, you felt that increase within yourself. And with this opposition that we're being met with, this misogynistic opposition that we're being met with from both women and men, just with that misogynistic essence, that judgmental essence, we see that these systems are putting more and more constraints on that freedom of choice for women. But we also see the resistance that because of that opposing force, the resistance can be felt also. And the real resistance is coming through the men and women who really do hold dear the role of the divine feminine, the role of the womanly body that very often houses, not always, but very often houses the more prominent energy of divine feminine than divine masculine, from the hormonal level, the physiological level to the spiritual level. And so men and women alike that give respect and reverence to that force are feeling it also. So the resistance of this divine feminine energy that has been bubbling is not just coming up from those women with eyes to see and ears to hear and intuition to feel. It also is coming from these divine masculine males who have eyes to see, ears to hear, and guns to run. You know, they're strong and they find their strength with that balance of the divine feminines in their life. That is really surging now. And so the resistance will be real, but not to be complacent, because we've obviously been too complacent for many repetitive cycles thus far regarding this issue. A lot of it is because it's difficult to talk about, because they've deliberately put out the propaganda and the conditioning of people's consciousness to make it very triggery and very difficult to talk about, in that people's egos getting triggered of a matriarchal system. And it's just that conditioning of the more negatively charged patriarchal system rather than the beautiful divine masculine energy. And so it is difficult to speak about, but that's not something I've ever shied away from. So we see that this has progressed. Like I said at the start of this video, the stepping out from that balance point has been vast. We've really gone to very distant shores. And so with that being said, though, there is this energy of they up the ante each time, and they up the ante regarding what technologies they have to hand to do so, whether that be writing, whether that be street preaching way back when to now, or whether that being able to harness algorithmic technology to get the message out there. This is where we see that they've stepped it up to the point where they are working in the abstract fields, fields where figures are very disjointed and disfigured and odd, in that we find ourselves in such an odd space of even the concept of a woman now is being taken away. So while we're being distracted by a lot of distractions to fight in the very linear 3D external space, this attack is happening, and we are very much at war regarding this space that is being taken away, the very concept, the very idea of what makes a biologically functioning woman's body. In that, just like I said before, all the isms I feel came from this initially, this man versus woman, this fear of the power of women via a few men, is that we see that, how do I say it? It's the equivalent now for women yet again at this meeting point of this cycle that keeps repeating. We see that is the equivalent of blackface, the offensive way of trying to mimic something that you are just not, in that the NHS is now being programmed and the nurses and doctors within that NHS being programmed to no longer to be able to assume the reality of a physiological body that is in front of them and the anatomy that that body would carry, in that they have to include this concept of this abstract womb that in a person that's just identifying as somebody who has this womb. And so we see that this attack is really reaching out this time. What happens when we step off the board too far? What happens, the system that we live under, the systems that we live under have sent us crazy. There's more mental illness and confusion than there was before. And I can only feel that this has a lot to do with it, of how many steps we take out from is what it is, the balancing of the divine feminine, divine masculine, and the balance that is created in the physical bodies that house those energies being taken away. So what happens when we go so far to allow the very idea or concept of what a housing of a body housing looks like, a casing, and innards look like for a consciousness to dwell in, within, and around a woman's body? What happens then? What parts of reality just go? What elements of what we've come to know as being human just disappear and go? And this is the space that we are in. And for those people who shout out about the agendas and all of the agendas that are there to specifically attack what gender somebody is and how much trouble you can get into for not getting that right. For those who are doing that, they are absolutely directly helping that same agenda to take away a woman. And this isn't to go against any other people's rights, because anybody who is balanced and in love with themselves, in knowing of self, whether male or female, they're not fearing their space. So they're not coming from a space of we can't let you do that in your freedom, in your space. We can't let you dress the way you want to dress and identify as you want to identify. We can't let that happen because it might just strip away some of our power and the space that we comfortably dwell in. No, for those who do have that, the eyes to see and the ears to hear and that balanced heart, they're not afraid. They're more afraid of the wider scale problem of, if we just roll over again and allow them to strip even more of the power and beauty of what a woman is in this space, then we see the ramifications that that will have for man, woman, boy, and girl into newborn, because it will change in a much more negative way. And so we're not saying you can't do this, you can't do that. We're the very people who are saying, do what you like, do what you like, but don't do that. Don't feel you can only do that when you take away from something else. Don't feel that you can only do that if you compress and depress something or someone else. Just do it in your own right. So those that are speaking out about the witches being the powerful women that they're speaking towards, being wrong and evil, you are directly correlating them with all of these agendas that are out there right now to revisit a past cycle that keeps repeating of pulling the beauty and prowess and power and virtues of a woman from body to essence, the divine feminine essence. You are pulling that rug yet again, and the ramifications will be huge if that is succeeded. The separation is huge anyway, and in some ways it seems the only thing to do to start rewriting this is to separate from those that would seek to divide cells up in a way that is not natural, in a way that if they were doing that to a developing child in a womb, that child would be born very disfigured and disjointed, and it would be a new type of being, because they are really trying to divide. And the only advice seems to be right now for these energies that are surging through as you build this divine feminine reserve within, because it has been so depleted. It's been depleted under these systems every second of every day. For those of you to separate yourself from those energies and build that force until a day of reckoning, days of reckoning, because it transpires through all of these agendas that we feel and see today. So be strong, but be aware of it. Be blissful in the knowing that if you can feel and hear my voice surging through that bubbling energy, that force that is building within, then we are strong and we do stand together. We really do. And in unity, we are even stronger. And because of this opposing force that we are blessed to live through and experience, we are the counterpart and get the opportunity to open those floodgates, to open those channels, those waters, and really find each other, because we can see ourselves even more clearly in each other with the contrast, with the background of this opposing force that would seek to deplete the divine feminine from both women and men alike. So that is a message of joy, and it's a message of get ready. It's a message of get strong, fortify yourself in every single way, because you are a opportunity for great change on a mass scale. And these energies are super intense. It's like riding, I don't know what they're called, as riptides, you know, in the huge waves. It really is. And stay excited in that space about the opportunities that you have before you to be a huge change factor, a huge strength and anchor point for us to experience a different type of society, different type of existence, where we can be more connected and anchored in with nature, alongside nature. For those that come after us, this is an opportunity for us to shine and for them to be proud of the space we fought to keep for them. The space is. So divine feminine energy in its element couldn't care less what you want to identify as long as that divine feminine energy can feel that you feel it, that you are blissful within that identity, that you expand yourself and grow. Because divine feminine energy, it's the waters. It loves to nourish, it loves to oxygenate, it loves creation. And so it's in that space where there is such a lack of judgment that we can get to amongst each other, for ourselves, which is such a beautiful space. But the divine feminine energy does need its space, and it needs a little bit of space back that is being stripped away. And that is what I feel a lot of us are preparing for right now. So much love, balance, and wholeness. I hope this hit the right notes for those that need to hear it. And if it hit the right notes for those that still need to hear it, but probably don't like hearing it, then, you know, it is what it is. We are pleased, we are happy, we are glad that we are a part of change. Much love, balance, wholeness.